Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Alison from the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association. You've probably seen emails from me promoting these workshops. So today is top tips for career success with Beck Brown. And this is a first of a four-part series on careers for postgraduate students that we'll be running every Thursday. So I'll post some links in the chat so you can come along again next week too. We are recording, and the recording will go up to our YouTube channel. I'll post that link as well. And I encourage you to become a member of the Postgraduate Association. And in that way, we keep all these great workshops going for you all year. So, Susie, did you want to introduce yourself, or we just go straight into Beck? What would you like to do?
What do you want to do, Beck?
What do you want to do?
Oh, well, I've got your slide here, Susie, all set, ready to go.
Oh, you're wonderful. All right. Hello, everyone. So I actually have a few jobs at SCU. So three, in fact, at the moment. My day job is I am one of the career consultants that work for SCU. So we are on each of your campuses. And we can talk to you about anything to do with your progress into the world of work. So today I'm here with that hat on, but normally I also do marking and tutoring for the Faculty of Education because my background is in early childhood education. So some of you here today might see me marking assignments for you or in class. So booking an appointment with us is after you've done all the work with Beck. So if you continue through the workshops as they come to you, you'll get a lot of knowledge that will help you get started in the things that you might need to do next. So if you go through and do the whole suite of these workshops, then perhaps it may be useful for you at the end to book in with a career consultant to have a chat about, your next step. So we do have a jobs platform on our website, which is there on the screen. When you go to that landing page, it's very clear where you do these things. It's their big yellow buttons. You can't miss them. And so we have a jobs board that employers advertise to students all around Australia and locally. So that's helpful if you're looking for a job straight away that's being advertised. We have lots of resume samples. And again, I know one of the topics Beck covers in lots of detail is creating a customised resume for the jobs that you're going for. So she'll probably be using our samples to show you those. And then, of course, when you get through to interview, we can even assist you with interview preparation. And we have an online tool that you can practice with. And then you can also do face-to-face with us if you'd like. And we have appointments that are face-to-face on campus, Gold Coast, Coffs and Lismore, and or by phone or Zoom if you don't want to or can't come to campus. So please feel free to reach out to us after you've done these wonderful workshops. And if we can help you, we're here and available for you. I think. Is that about it? It's been a while since I've done one of these. It's like, how do I summarize us into 5 minutes?
I know. And I'll give you guys another plug because they are amazing team. And the ways that you can connect with them and having them in different campuses, and they do wonderful, wonderful work. So I really appreciate you being here.
And I would also agree with Alison that they should sign up to be an SCPA member, and you can get lots of information on so many helpful things when you're studying your postgrad. It's a complicated life. And I was doing my doctorate, but I've put mine on hold because life intervened. Yeah. So I know that they can be of value to you in lots of different ways. So reach out for help if you need it.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Susie. And thank you, Alison. Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Beck Brown. I am going to be here with you for this series of workshops. I also wear a couple of hats myself. So I love, and my other work is with postgraduate students. And I love that I get to have this time with you. And I think Susie made a really good point there, just to begin with, about customize. And she was talking about customizing your resume. But I thought about that word in if you take a customized approach to your career, in all facets of your career, which is that's really the essence of these workshop series, and how you go about doing that is what we're planning to do with you guys for the next 4 weeks. This class is it's a quick snapshot. If you aren't able to come to the other workshops, they will be recorded. Today, I'm going to cover quickly and briefly all the core components for career success. And then in the following weeks, so next week we'll do cover letters and resumes. We will dive more deeply into those. And I'm aware, just chatting before the session, that we have tools like, AI that can help us and are useful, but taking a customized. So yes, certainly if you need to, wherever you find it helpful, use the machine, but then you want to add, wherever you can, your own input, your own color, your own flavor, who you are, into all components of that. And there's also thinking, I always try to think before I start one of these sessions, what I've learned, what I've learned recently from working with postgraduate students, that then, sets the tone for this next series. And so one of the things that I noted with our cohort that I've just worked with, our postgraduate students, soon to go out into the world of work, they did really, really well. Resumes are done. I've noted that resumes are done really well. Self-awareness, which we're about to jump into in a minute, underpins everything that you do. But the key areas, and I want to bring this at the beginning, so if you're thinking about how to plan your time, what you've got coming up, what workshops to dive into, I noticed the cover letters were one of the most poorly done. And it's not because students haven't tried, not by any means. It's just knowing how to approach it. The format, we give you a really clear format, which is some of the tools have been designed by and haven't changed, and are in line with the SCU careers team. Format for your cover letter and the interview. So interview skills, and that's across the board. So I just wanted to bring that up at the beginning, that they are the two key areas. Students did do pretty well with their LinkedIn. At the end of this series of workshops, I'll give you some hints and tips on how to stand out in that area. And that's probably a nice segue to when we talk about that word customization. This was a gentleman, a former student of ours. And not through lack of trying, and certainly what I have found, and I think probably what I love most about working with our postgraduate students, is that drive, that motivation, that commitment to do well. And so he sent out 526 job applications. Now, never, ever, ever do I want that to be any one of our postgraduate students. So as Susie said, it is about customizing, and we're going to talk over the next few weeks and today how you go about customizing. And you're customizing it by talking about who you are, your values, your strengths, your specific achievements. So differentiating yourself, it's not a suggestion. This is probably the most important thing that we'll do, is about that it is absolutely critical to your success. So when he went to a customized approach, he got 4 callbacks for each of his 7 applications. And so what I think I remember experiencing this myself. It's easy just to get your old application out and just flick it out. But what it does, it reinforces our ideas about, there's no work out there. I can't get what I want. I can't get, the work, the jobs aren't there. Nobody's going to employ me. And then we can just stay in the same mindset, the same thinking, rather than doing something very different, which takes longer, but it's actually a much more powerful and, in the long term, a much, much quicker approach. It's more painful, yes. It's awkward, yes, because you got to spend some more time diving into it, but it actually will save you time, and it'll save you buckets of money, because you'll get a job. You may be out of be out of work for a longer period of time than you ever needed to be. And with that is another segue to another critical component of this application process, is that AI plays a role at the other end as well. And I'm going to talk about more when we dive into the individual sessions, but today give you some ideas of things that you really need to be cautious of, because I don't want anyone sitting at home thinking it's something to do with them and it's a computer. All right. But before we do all of that, and we've got a blank canvas of a cover letter, a blank canvas of a resume, and we want to tailor those. How do we do that? We do that by having a chat to, I also run a series of one-on-one consultations. So you are welcome. I'll pop my email address in at the chat at the end. You are welcome to make an appointment with me as part of the postgraduate, as part of this series. We can dive more into how you can develop, how you can, by chatting, I can help highlight to you things that I see in you, things that you can highlight in your application, interview, cover letter, etc. Susie's team can also do the same for you as well. So you can do that in some career hope. I love to do a bit of hope mapping with students in one-on-one, but just by talking to somebody, you get that feedback as well. But if that's not comfortable for you, let's talk also how you can go about individualizing, and you can individualize it after you have to put the work in to learn about. And some of you guys, have more experience in the world of work, some have less experience. So some of you can easily reflect on these. Others, there's some really useful tools that you can use, and some of them are available at the SCU career page. So the things that will make, if you really focused your cover letter, your resume, and your interview on reflecting these to the employer, after you then go and do some research about which employer you want to work for, and make sure they are a match for your goals, your interests, your values, and your personality, you will find that your working life will change. You will likely get a job more quickly, stay with that employer longer because there is that alignment, and enjoy your life, your working life. So just really quickly, your interests, these are going to be when you're just, I'm conscious that we've got a lot to cover in this, and I will cover more of these elements because they're absolutely critical. I'll talk about these themes over the next 4 weeks and continuously, but I just want to touch on each of them really quickly. So how do interests align with your career? So for example, if you're, many students are doing things like, I know in this particular cohort, you're doing early childhood, students are doing moving into PhDs, research areas. And I love that, if you get that chance to do a PhD, that you can do it associated with a key area of interest. But if you happen to be listening and you are thinking about you're doing any of our business postgraduate degrees, accounting, for example, how to find an accounting job. So think about, perhaps you love travel, just as a really quick example. So accounting in the travel industry. Hello, you get to, and then when you talk in that interview, you get that chance to talk about, you know, your love for travel. They can see that immediate connection and alignment. If you are particularly interested in, you know, continue with the, maybe it's human resources, and you love the idea of 5-star hotels, human resources in hotels, just as some quick examples. Your skills, you're going to have technical skills, which you are developing by way of your postgraduate study, your research skills, your critical reflection skills, your problem-solving skills, etc. But you will also have interpersonal skills, you will have soft skills, some by undertaking a bit of a skills audit, and that is looking for where you need to improve, where you need to develop. Then you can know what they are, work on them, and then communicate them in all aspects of your application. Personality, all of these things that I'm talking about today, there are a suite on the SCU careers page. There are some really cool tools on there that help you identify, you know, what your personality type is. How does personality affect your career? If you're not a morning person, and you really like to work quietly and alone, then looking at the types of work, excuse me, where you are, I mean, you're still, no matter what your personality is, you're still going to need to engage. But then looking at what sort of work environment that is. Perhaps you can have a hybrid work or remote work, etc. Knowing what motivates you and excites you. And I've been thinking about motivation in we got 7 of you here, lovely. Motivation in the context of what actually, so if you think about one way that you could approach motivation immediately is think about your classes, think about which classes at the moment you go into that light you up, right? On the other hand, I like to think on the positive, but you could also think about what drains you. That can be key information as to what actually drives your behavior, helps you with that persistence to move towards a goal. And then you can actually communicate that in your cover letter, in your resume, in your LinkedIn, so that then that is a match, because what you're ultimately doing is you're trying to, and I had a bit of a think about, Tinder. Tinder for careers is an opportunity, but ultimately it is about where that is, that connection, that fit between what they need and who you are. So your values, really, really quickly. In our postgraduate and undergraduate business degrees, you probably cover some of this in education and other postgraduate courses. Values comes up because it actually underpins who we are, but it gives us purpose and meaning. So, for example, if you care deeply about the environment, and you find an organisation that is at the core of everything that they do, hopefully we all care deeply about, the environment. So perhaps it's built into the ethos of the business in terms of the way that they recruit, the types of materials that they use, the way that they manage their shipping, etc. That can have a really big bearing on, I should say a large bearing on how well you enjoy that work. You know that you've got a shared vision and mission as you work towards it. Now, if you are, most of you guys are probably in the stage where you've got a bit of time. What I would be doing is thinking about or starting to collate, gather a list of organizations, whether you gather them into your LinkedIn that you follow, you write them down on bits of paper, start looking for organizations that have the same, and it takes time, and so for some of you guys, it might be a very foreign approach. or foreign idea, but you can have a look at their website. Have a look at the way they present themselves, the language that they use. What are they focusing on? What's happening in that organization? If it really lights you up and inspires you, pop it aside, put it somewhere, follow them on LinkedIn, and put them in your little portfolio so that when the time comes, you're like, oh, okay, JTB in Japan, for example, they're in the tourism industry. They've been established in the business for a very long time. At the core of what they do is, operational, exceptional programs, etc. And then that you've got something that you can quickly jump back to. But most importantly, when we're working with our values, it gives us purpose and meaning. And purpose and meaning sounds like this really kind of like, but it's why we get up every day and do what we do. And when you can align that with the work that you do, we spend so much time working. You got this chance right now to find that way through a little bit of extra work. And I know that you guys are absolutely up for it because you've come along and to spend your time here with me on a Thursday, which I'm very touched about. So that indicates to me that you are highly motivated, that you are persistent, that you are driven. So take that extra time to do some of the extra things, whether that's having some time with me and some one-on-one Zoom sessions, having some time with Susie's team, getting some feedback, talking about what you're afraid about in this process, and then getting some feedback. Hey, that's a really normal, because most of I've come across very, very few things that aren't normal in terms of career fear or concerns. So what makes you unique? Already you are unique. Many of you guys have come back to study. You've had families, you've moved abroad, you've got, a love for, many of you, a love for travel, a love for ongoing learning, education. If you just communicated that alone, you've already set yourself apart, because 90% of applications will say, I've got communication skills and I've got team building skills. But how about somebody that's that has a love for learning, a commitment to self development, by the goal and the drive and the ambition to continuously engage in postgraduate education. And I can say genuinely, I remember a few years ago having to think about, where would I go in my love of careers? And I thought, I love people, working with people with disabilities, and I love corporates, and I love international students. And I have actually, and postgraduate students, and I have actually found that my deepest love in the last, and I'm still learning, still growing, my deepest love lies in our postgraduate students, which of course includes students with various backgrounds and disabilities. But I love you because of your tenacity and your drive and your willingness to keep going and to achieve. Opportunities. So just, we've been talking about understanding you, all right? When you understand a little bit more about you, what you have to offer, then you can turn your gaze, as I said, that's where you start to look at what is out there in the marketplace. Now, we are in very challenging times. However, I'll try to always look for the positive, except on a really tired and bad day. But the positive about the constantly changing environment in terms of the world of work is that, okay, yes, things change really quickly. The airline industry, there's no work, and then there's an abundance of work. The good thing is that because things are changing very quickly, there are opportunities. And I heard one of the top podcasters on the planet say this the other day, and I've said it before, but you get these things, you think, it's just a term, is that there are jobs that are going to be in the very near future that we don't even know exist yet. So that can be really exciting. The things that we do need to work on is our approach to our approach to technology, because it's going to be at the core, but also our capacity to go, hey, okay, things are changing in the accounting arena. So being continuously, being as you are, which is motivated to come here to class, being continuously, and that's probably one of my top, continuously, like on the gaze, looking out for what else. It doesn't mean you don't still drill down, do a great job with what you're doing, but it means that you keep your eye out. Okay, you know, I'm loving accounting, but I want to get into superannuation. I'm in early childhood. There's now been a change in, you know, in the education system where I can do another 12 months and I can include primary education in that. So I'll go and study that so that I can, you know, increase my employability, as an example. So if I come back to my very quick story about the cover letters that I just saw recently, one of the key areas, or two key areas. The first one is that they didn't research the employer enough. And that sounds like a tiring thing to do. But I tell you what, if you research employers and it makes you feel anxious and it makes you feel tired and it doesn't inspire you, don't apply for the job. So your research, spending that time, that extra time will save you time writing a whole bunch of, and hopefully Alison's still here, and she shares some wonderful stories about her own experiences getting jobs here, and that matching what they do. So research everywhere. The great thing at the moment is that there is information everywhere. Access and build your network. You guys have already started that by coming here to these workshop series. And I shared with Alison that 3.5 years ago, so just before she started, we had a law student in here, and she had a job in law, and at that time even harder than this time, by actually getting on the phone and calling. And I'm happy to share that story towards the end. And it just by showing up to these workshops, I've had students that I have met in here in these series that then come and do some workshops, some one-on-ones with me, and that then have a job within I think about 4 weeks after the conclusion. So you have already started your networking by being here, and we've got some time at the end for you to chat, to talk about things. There's going to be more coming up. This is just a really, really quick overview. We're going to dive more into each of these as the weeks progress. Visiting Career Expo, industry events. Now, I know for some of you guys that can be harder. You're in remote areas. But there are all sorts of online activities. What I do genuinely is that I, just as I said, like I just gather things on LinkedIn. I see things through my education. I see organizations, associations. And then when I've got time, I try to engage in additional opportunity to go to events, whether they're online, in person, to spend that time being with people in your industry so that you can actually raise your profile and genuinely find out what is happening there. Yes, it takes more energy, more effort, but actually what we know about well-being, and this is one of my greatest concerns for all of us at the moment, is that we spend a lot of time in our houses. We're human beings. We need to be with each other. So getting out there to events. The great thing is that certainly in Australia, there's much more post, well, hopefully post forever pandemic, there are a lot more face-to-face events. But if that is too difficult, too frightening, just do what you've done and just show up and listen. Just by listening is helpful for you. Experience, placements, volunteering. We begun this session, and I we're chatting to just one of the students that had arrived early. We can fill up half a page. I had a student a number of years ago in event management, and she came to me in year 1, and she said, "What can I do now?" And I said, "Well, you can do a little bit of volunteering. You focus on your grades. Join the events association. Go to some industry events. hang around in some corridors, chat to your lecturers and your tutors. Long story short, she did that, and she stayed connected. She stayed connected to me. So before she'd finished her placement, she had a position with the university, actually, in research, in events. She stayed and then went on, continued in that role. And then she came back and she said, I love doing events research, but I really want to get into industry. True story. Just before that, another student who was in the events, who worked in a corporate company, he came to me and said, do you know anybody fabulous that we need somebody in our Sydney office? Now, she was on the Gold Coast. I said, true story, we'll get tingles. I said, actually, I do. And she is amazing, because by that stage, I'd had her through her years of study. She'd stayed in that events research, but she wanted to get into corporate. She then packed up her bags, moved to Sydney on that recommendation, and then until the pandemic, she worked for that corporate events company in Sydney. True story. And she would just come and chat to me, ask me for advice. You can do that the same with any of your lecturers, your tutors. You've now met Susie, for those of you guys that are doing education. Alison's team, her and Craig and Leslie are fantastic, and they all know, they feel as deeply as we do about, as I do here, because they're doing it every day. I get to slide in here and have time with you. They're here to help, and they've got amazing lived experience and advice. So what we often do, and I know I always kind of cringe when I see this, because I've been guilty of this, when we're feeling anxious, when we've got to make a transition, when we don't know what the future is going to look like, we can be really passive. And what that means is going on Seek and going, oh, okay, so there's no jobs here. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to get a job. Oh, money's running out, etc., etc. What we need to be doing is actually having a multi-pronged approach. So that means chatting to the careers team, getting any other assistance. So the Postgraduate Association, they have lunches that they do. Might seem like, how's a lunch going to help? You would be surprised. Your lecturers, your tutors, the tools that they have on the SU careers team, multiple different websites, updating your LinkedIn, chatting to your friends and your family and your extended network. So I remember during the pandemic, somebody that I knew, he struggled like many people did, and he reached out all like to his partners, friends. He had a rough period of time, as people did, and then eventually through his network ended up getting a better job than he had before the pandemic. There are recruitment agencies, there are professional associations that you can join. What and I'll talk about LinkedIn, what I found to be really, really helpful a few years ago, I started, and you can do it, you can tailor your LinkedIn so that, say it's data analysts or data engineering, and then find everybody that you can. You don't need to know those people. You can ask people to connect with you. If they say no, they don't, doesn't matter. Then you can watch what people, you can start to gather people into your network, then watch what they're talking about, watch who comments on what. You can do that today or tomorrow, is tailor the title of your LinkedIn and then start asking people for requests. You can ask me for a request. I will happily be friends with you on LinkedIn. So I am Beck Brown, but also the SCU alumni have amazing group of individuals. They're students like you, and you will be joining a huge cohort of students that love to help other students. As part of that, the SCU careers team, they run the Bright Futures mentoring program. It will be running in term 2, and it's free. You get to be mentored by somebody in, usually, I think in about 90% of cases, they match you with somebody in your industry. And even if it's not, it is a former student that has walked the path, and that lived experience. They can tell you, okay, you know, I did this, this didn't work for me. I'm really loving this. This is where the opportunities are. This is what it's like to work in a hybrid organization, etc. So the hidden job market, 80%. Now, that one of the hardest things is that when you're not yet built your network, it's hard to find that hidden network. But you have started that today by coming along here, and I love that. So, and please hang around at the end so that we can chat, so that I can get to know you, and then if you need to, we could, or not if you need to, if you want to, we can have time one-on-one, and so we can work through what's going on for you guys individually. You've got work placements. So for our diploma, early childhood diploma students, that's a relatively new program, but I'm pretty sure it's got built-in placement. Do not think about your placement, whatever placement, even your volunteering role. Treat your volunteering role, every minute of that role, that it's your job. You own that job. Rock up, turn up at the best of your ability, ask questions, contribute, be helpful. You will get feedback on that placement. You'll likely get offered a job. That is an incredible platform that is undervalued and underestimated. Build your personal brand. You've already started to do that by showing up here. You're working on your pre-professional identity. Professional associations, so they are business associations. If you're in health, APRA, things like that. On the left-hand side here, it doesn't mean that these things don't exist. I know that some of you guys are really heavily involved in, you know, things like, you know, YouTube and in Instagram. And I noticed, I've been watching a bit of YouTube lately, and I saw the coolest thing. I was watching a video, and I saw how these young people, they were content developers for a particular area of interest, particular travel. And they'd all gotten to know each other, through because they knew who their competition was. And then they all went and created they all created content together, which I just thought was absolutely amazing. So do not underestimate your capacity through those things, those social media, those tools that you are already using and loving, how you can create additional networks, additional opportunities. But here, the students that I have seen do brilliantly had the good fortune of being hanging around in some SUU corridors for a while. And those that I have seen excel as they transition, and this can be harder. I know, if it costs you money to get to the campus, if you're still working on your English, baby steps, or if you've got a family at home, you've already, you've got full-time work and family, you can dabble with some of this online as well by these sorts of things. There's other workshops, for example, that Postgraduate Association do. Your lecturers and your tutors, that might seem like a really tiny thing that you can do. But if you're the person in your class, all right, and say it's something very specific, if you're the person that always, just comments, asks a couple of questions, always responds really quickly, writes, nice little emails to your tutor, your lecturer, stays engaged, you've raised your profile. So when and if some amazing opportunity, and do not underestimate your lecturers and tutors, the first person they're going to think of is Sandeep or Christian or Martha, because you are the one. And I've seen that. I've had cohorts of, massive number of students, but there are always a couple of students that show up, ask a couple of questions, really polite, really just curious, conscientious, engaged. And that's you guys, because you're here. So that's one way. A really, really simple way is just to be really connected to those that are teaching you, as one way that you can do it It doesn't cost you any money, raises your profile, and you would be surprised at what opportunities. So I'd say every year, about 4 or 5 times a year, I get asked for recommendations of students, and then those students get to go and sit on stages, be involved in marketing, be involved in filming, etc., etc. And how did those students raise their profiles? Just by having a chat, being engaged, being curious, just doing what we're doing. And then what happens from that is they get to stand on a stage, and then they get to meet other stuff. And they're like, oh, hey, would you like to be involved in this workshop, focus group, etc. Family and friends, your network, absolutely vital. Micro connections. I've been thinking a lot about this after listening and being reminded of it, listening to, and I do my own. I listen to things that I find really helpful. Micro connections. So those chats at the coffee shop, you will be surprised what will come. Even chatting in the lift will potentially, you haven't got long, maybe you get to go back down together. Be proactive. So researching employers, people hire people that they like. That is super duper important, and we're going to get into that. First impressions count. Use your elevator pitch. We're going to talk more about that. Ask questions. Really nice way to network, and the best way to develop opportunities for employability is to help other people, whatever way. And that can just be, you're working on a team project with other students, and be the most helpful one in that group. Might sound silly, but it's about being kind, but also it raises your own ability to engage, your own interpersonal skills, your own confidence, etc. So we've covered sports. Sports is always a nice one now that we're all back in person. So fun things that you can do. Again, I'm conscious that people have different access to these. If you're living rural, remote, what's happening in, if you've got a really small town, there are all sorts of things like food bank services. There are community centres. The SCU careers team, they run additional workshops. The SCU Postgraduate Association runs an annual conference. I had the really good fortune of being able to go to the dinner last year, and it was lovely, lovely, lovely. And I met colleagues there that I knew their names, but I hadn't actually met them in person, which was just an absolute delight. And like one example was a very senior staff member. I didn't know that I did know. I knew his name. He'd been on a number of television programs. But anyway, that's a whole other story. What are employers? And if we have time, another time, I'll tell you a true story. It just reminded me, another true story about an unbelievably true story of networking. So what are employers looking for? This changes at the moment. Forever the focus is on adaptability. I think resilience actually isn't in there. They want you to be conscientious. They want you to be curious. They want you to be easy to get along with, easy to communicate with. So you're easy to get along with the team. They are very challenging times in the workplace. Things happen really quickly. So if your capacity to adjust is important. Now that cultural alignment there, that comes if you have done the work initially, and they've probably done their work as well, but that cultural alignment means all that you believe in, they believe in as well, and then you're going to be a better fit. Work experience. Please, 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 please remember that if you've got another year or 6 months to go, you can quickly do a couple of things. You can do some free workshops, some free training, couple of things. So you can do some LinkedIn, things that will help you. You'll meet other people. So LinkedIn, you can do some extra training on LinkedIn. You can do The Black Dog Institute has some, if you're doing, it'll be great for early childhood students. Black Dog Institute has some free training. TAFE New South Wales has some free courses that I believe. They're just a few that come to mind. I'll add some more. They're just ones off the top of my head. Okay, really quickly, I'm going to cover cover letters in much, much more detail. I was thinking just before this class, when I run the workshop next week, it's an hour. It's an hour on, approximately an hour on the cover letter, an hour on the resume. But once upon a time, I actually used to spend 2 hours talking about a cover letter. I'm going to give you my top tips. I'm going to give you my top tips now. Come along next week for a more detailed approach, but there is a lot to talk about. I begun this session by, and I'm speaking really quickly because I don't want you to miss out. I begun this session by talking about having the opportunity to mark some postgraduate cover letters. What they did, they were formatted nicely, relatively well, which I'll come to in a minute. But what they really, really lacked was a very, very detailed approach in terms of looking at who that organisation was, reflecting their core values, their skills, and in particular their specific experience that matched the organisation and the job. And that comes, so if you toss it together in half an hour, you're going to be disappointed. You don't want to be disappointed. So never use a generic cover letter. Now, unless still not going to be generic. Once you start getting hits on your cover letter and you're applying for some similar jobs, then you can spend less time. You know that and this is super duper important, you know that the automatic tracking systems like your resume, your cover letter, because you're continuously getting hits. Only at that point, until you get a hit on your cover letter as part of your application, you need to keep working on that. So SCU careers team, again, have some wonderful resources as well. All right, so here we go for your cover letter. How are you going to stand out? Customize each role. You must address it to a person wherever possible. So otherwise, the other approach is dear hiring manager. I would always try to find out who it is. Always use their surname. And a dear Mr. or Ms. is the safest. So dear Mr. Brown, dear Miss Brown. Use keywords. Those keywords are from the job advertisement. They are from anything on their website, and they match the organisation, they match your experience, but super duper importantly, they are from the job advertisement. Have you addressed the key points? Get that job advertisement and I would scribble all over it. Look, have you done every single thing that they have asked for? So they've talked about the desirable things that they want, and then they've also talked about, more importantly, the essential. Address all of them. So if they say desirable, willingness to travel, at the very end of your letter, you will say, absolutely willing to travel. You wouldn't say absolutely, but you would say, I'm willing to travel. It should only be one page, not one page and a bit, unless, I remember a few years ago in the health arena for nursing, they were asking for a cover letter beyond one page. Predominantly, unless it says otherwise, a full page, really big, juicy, detailed paragraphs, make maximum use of the page and give it lots and lots and lots of love. When it says concise paragraphs, that means I say 4 to 6 sentences. So you don't want to have, like, sometimes students write a couple of lines and then the whole rest of it is, one gigantic paragraph. A good paragraph is 4 to 6 sentences in length. So an opening statement about the particular skill, competency, etc., a couple of examples, and then close that paragraph. Indicate that you look forward to meeting them, not that you hope to meet them. So you want to say, make it a given that you're going to see them. First impressions count. Your first paragraph gives you a really good chance. You guys are super duper duper. We're all unique, but you already have a unique skill set in that you are a postgraduate student. You've studied somewhere else. If it's relevant, mention that in that first paragraph. If you have traveled and traveled to, to study, you can study abroad. Mention that in that first paragraph and how that has developed your cultural competencies. As an example, developed your capacity to work with multicultural teams, etc. The first paragraph, the first 90% of the time you're, unless you get the chance to email it to someone, and we'll talk more about that wherever you can, email it to somebody, but that's when you need your network. But a computer's going to read it first. When a human reads it, you want to make sure that they love your hook, you engage them, and you continue to engage them. You want them to stay reading. The hook should be the reader's first call for an interview to find out more about you. You must be specific. I noticed this in the couple that I marked recently. Be really specific what the job ad is. If you're applying for, a role with BP, they can sometimes have 30 or 40 jobs going. So be really, really specific. Use the reference number. I just want to have a quick look at see how we're going for time. Okay. I'm going to take a couple of minutes break. So I'm going to finish the cover letter. I'm going to take a couple of minutes break, and don't go away because I'm going to do the resume, super duper important, and touch on LinkedIn and interviews. But what I want to do right now, I would take a screenshot of this. Now, Susie mentioned, if I know a couple of you guys popped in a little bit later, Susie from the careers team was here, and the SCU careers team. Oh, thank you. Oh, great question about the international students for domestic. Great question. Things like the Black Dog Institute, and I'll try to think of some other ones, will be free, I believe. But probably not the TAFE New South Wales. However, I would type into, so if you're doing early childhood, for example, thank you, great question, Akash. I would type in free training for early child. Just be very, be cautious, get somebody who's a native, if you're not sure, to check that, that there isn't a catch. But there can be things like first aid, which is helpful for any role that you go into. Free first aid. Have a look see if there's any the international team at Southern Cross University. Perhaps ask them if they know of any. Sometimes they run particular things. I know they run sweet little, I know at the Gold Coast anyway, they run tours and things, but to go on little adventures. Now that might seem a bit off topic. However, you get to network. You get our international office, the staff in there are former students. So great place to network there, but they may know some additional courses and things for international students. Great question. Now, as Susie mentioned, so keep those questions coming. Susie mentioned the resources on the that's why I want to go in here. The SCU careers team, SCU/careers, they've done the hard work for you. They've got cover letters, they've got sample cover letters that are laid out like this. Then you go in and put your they've done the framing for you and the formatting for you. They've also done some very some industry specific. So they've got resumes for early childhood teaching. They may be undergraduate, a little bit of tweaking. And these tools are all based on industry. So everything that we are suggesting to you is based on the feedback that we get from employers. So she's put, so there's notes all through here. So this one is a nursing one for John Flynn Hospital. she's addressed particular things. I won't go into all the detail, but I will talk more about it next week. The middle of your cover letter is really where you're going to give very specific examples. So one of the things that I notice that, regularly that I find is that there isn't consistency across all components of the application process. But often I can get to somebody's resume and I find something at the back there, some really cool volunteering, some really cool sporting achievements, and don't panic if you haven't got all of those. That's why if you work with, one of myself or with Susie's team, we get to ask you those questions and you're like, oh, I forgot I did that. Yeah. But I find really, really cool stuff that's not in the cover letter. So if you've got amazing sporting achievements, you've done some volunteering, you work with your children's, maybe you do your children's sporting teams, you do other work associated with having children, you've done other projects and things with your undergraduate degree. There's other subjects that you did with your other undergraduate degree. There's things that you love to do in your spare time. And one place where I love, if you want to do, what is it called? I have to think of it, is there's these beautiful runs that happen all over Australia. I'll think of the name. And they're desperately always looking for volunteers. Whole bunch of Japanese students this time last year did some volunteering. Oh, Parkrun. So Parkrun all over the Gold Coast are always looking for volunteers, and it is so fun. And it's such a beautiful way to connect with, improve your English. Even if you're domestic students, it is just, there's one at Nerang. They're so fun, and you don't run. What you can run, and you can run and actually be a bunny and help other people along. It's beautiful atmosphere. It's a couple of hours that you do in the morning. So that's just one example. There's one at Nerang. But if you put that into that's a half a paragraph or a paragraph, and that's 1/7, 1/8 of something that you can fatten out. You get to improve your communication skills, you get to help other people, you get to solve problems. So one of the occasions that I was there, people there was somebody fell over, and then I watched how they engaged in first aid. The volunteers were all involved in that. So there's an example that you could use, etc. All right. We might take conscious of time, might take a 5-minute break. We won't take 10 minutes because I don't want to lose you. Stick around because I'm going to give you my tips I'm going to be going much more detail into cover letters and resumes next week, but I'm going to give you some of my top tips for writing your resume, things that employers tell us time and time again that they want, and some really important things associated with AI. That's what I'm going to be coming back with. So stand by. I will be back in at, make it nice and round, 11:05. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just pause.
Okay, so I was just in those 5 minutes thinking about what could be most helpful for you, for you to know immediately about your resume. And the most important thing that you do need to know, and I feel one of the reasons I feel so deeply about this is because, hello, welcome back, is because I don't want any of you guys sitting at home and thinking there's something wrong with you and it's AI. So when I'll just put these, when you upload your resume onto a platform, in many cases currently, things change, it's likely to be through Seek or Jora or Indeed, but most likely Seek. If you have the good fortune, and I would encourage you wherever you can, try to get access to applying for a job outside of having to compete against all of the thousands of people that actually don't want the job and the thousands of people that do want the job. and increase your odds. But in many cases, it's likely, well, before you've got established your your network, your building, it takes time. You're going to upload a cover letter, resume, and I'll talk a bit later about selection criteria. And in some cases, you may have to fill in an additional application form. So, for example, sometimes you've got to go through a portal inside a portal inside a portal, which can be enormously frustrating. The first thing is allow plenty of time. Don't be the last to upload your application. But also, please know, and I would, if you're going for a job in 3 months' time or 6 months' time, even 12 months' time, because they'll employ you in some marinas, they're really happy to employ a graduate and you can negotiate a part-time job, is that start playing with it now. Start seeing when you get a hit, build your confidence with it. I would get your Seek profile. It takes some time to set that up. Get that set up ASAP. Start, and it gives you the option to add skills. Add all of your skills. Complete that Seek profile completely to your best of your ability. Then often you'll get feedback from Seek that you haven't got the right skills or you haven't got this or that. When and if you get that feedback, that's why playing with it early will develop your confidence. It will reduce that immediacy and those challenges. And then you get to see what happens to your resume. And the reason I feel really confident about this, I have more confidence about it is from literally trial and error going back a number of years ago. For example, do not download your resume from LinkedIn. And this is where those machines should talk to each other, but they don't. Don't download your resume from LinkedIn and upload it onto Seek and send it out. It will chew you up and spit you out, and you will look like a different human being. So the AI software that recruiters use, it's very clever, but it's looking for keywords, all right? And it doesn't like, and this is the heartbreaking bit, it doesn't like fancy formatting. Okay, super duper important. So let's get into, and that's what I'm going to focus on today, because this can be the difference between you sitting there for months and months thinking there's something wrong with you. If you're not getting a hit, I want you to try a variety. If you're not getting a hit for a good period of time, so you can try the SCU careers team if I'm around, and certainly to reach out to us and the Postgraduate Association. But also I want you to try doing a few other things. To everyone. All right. SCU careers. I want you to try Career One. They give you free feedback. You can get both the consultation and written feedback for free, or you certainly could up until last I looked. Resume Worded is a wonderful free tool. You can use it, and again, they may have changed it. I haven't used it in the last couple of days or anything. Resume Worded is a free tool, and you can put your resume into there multiple times for free, and it tells you what you need to fix. Resume 360 is another similar tool. Now, why are all these tools helpful? Because they, and the Resume 360 is offered by the SCU careers team, so you get access to that tool, because they will read your resume in the same way that AI does, give you specific feedback. And I've experimented with Resume 360 just recently, and it was fantastic. I've used Resume Worded. I've used that before, and it's also fantastic. But the SCU Resume 360 is fantastic. I would develop your resume. I would get feedback from myself or from the careers team, but I wouldn't stop there. I would get, and the reason I say that is because when I first started experimenting with this software, I used some colleagues, with their permission, their resumes, practitioners, and they got less than 60%. And it's not because written it wasn't, but they weren't hitting the mark for what the specific words and the way that they wanted it in these tools. So that it wants metrics, for example. So when you're talking about achievements, it wants you to mention, for example, increase sales by 25%. It will be probably the most useful, and they're free, these services. Resume worded, after you get it up to, I think it's like 90%, then you have to like get the premium. But if you get your resume up to 90%, and you start getting really high scores in Resume 360, you are streets ahead. If you don't do it, you may find that you think there's something wrong with you, something, that you haven't got. It's not that, it's a computer. So many, in 90% of cases, the computer doesn't like you. That's all. And you haven't figured out the tips and the tools. And the only way you find out for your particular resume is getting feedback, both written feedback from career practitioners, through those Career One, myself, SU Careers team, but also getting the feedback from the machines. That is absolutely critical. You need both. Spelling, grammar, consistent headings. It hates people, and it's so sad because people that are really conscientious, they go and make beautiful resumes in things like Canvas or Canva. I always get them mixed up, Canva maybe. And they make it really pretty, and they put their photo up there. And these automatic tracking systems, they just hate it. They don't like graphics. They don't like tables. Keep it simple. The great thing is the SCU Careers team, I know I keep talking about them because they've done all the hard work for you. They've got specific, jump in there today and go and download a resume, and then just play with it, tweak it, put it through the machines, and then get somebody to have a final look over it, a specialist in the field, but make sure the machine has looked at it as well. Contact details, career professional profile. We're going to talk more about, I'm going to spend some time next week talking really about what achievements look like. And how to, what I really like to do, and I'll talk more about it next week, is I like to have a separate section at the beginning of the resume that is focused specifically on key skills, but in particular achievements. That's based on what industry tell us. They tell us that when they see a resume focused on achievements, the score goes through the roof in terms of their engagement and interest in that application resume. You can put a lot of love. This is where those voluntary activities, placement, work experience, anything that you can do, you can start to. So often we have students in postgrad, they're starting a new story. They've previously done early childhood, and now they're doing project management. However, there's a whole lot that can be gained from a life in early childhood that can be woven. Looking after children requires project management. All right. So again, that's where you may need some help, but don't think that just because you've changed your degree and that you're in a new career that you can still, and that's where you may need the help. You've got a whole host of employability skills associated with, time management, problem solving, planning, critical thinking, etc., that you can weave in. Employment history. What I always suggest to do is to reframe, as you move into postgrad, reframe this story. So you're going to have, these are the exact headings that I would have. If you haven't yet got relevant experience, then you could just go for employment history, or you could call it, professional experience, and find a way to tweak, something that you're doing to make it align further. And again, that's where you may need some help. Voluntary activities. your other training. So that's where some of those things like your first aid, you're working with other things like you're working with children's check, your police clearance, some of those things that you will need, whether you're going into, health, whether you're going into, psychology, mental health, early childhood, etc. Things like first aid and some of those Black Dog training, LinkedIn training. I wanted to give you another place that these are massive online classrooms, which our international students will be able to use. They're called MOOCs. The two that I have used, just be cautious because they've got like you can get it for free, but then if you get the certificate, it costs you more. So just be cautious but these are the two that I've really enjoyed using for extra things that you can put on your resume. Coursera. I've used them both. They're fantastic, and they are free for international students. I've really enjoyed, but just as I said, just be really cautious. So for one of them, for example, you've only got if you keep studying that course beyond the period of time, they charge you every month. So just make sure you read the instructions on them, but they've both been really helpful and I really enjoyed them. And they're massive they're run by huge, I say huge, prestigious universities. So I've done, I didn't finish one of them. I did one with Yale. I've done Berkeley, Penn University in America offers them, and they look fabulous on your, you can put them into your resume. They're short courses as well. You've got a period of time and they're really easy to follow. They're easy to engage in. You've just got to be committed to doing, you can choose your time, but you've got to get it done within 3 months. And so sometimes that's always the month, the last month, like you suddenly get really busy. So just make sure that's the only thing I would say there's probably other ones, but they're the two that I've really loved using. They will look fabulous. Join any professional association. So for example, I'm a member of the Career Development Association of Australia. They do webinars and things, and networking opportunities. They have a conference every year and so forth. Make sure you include 2 to 3 references depending on what you can fit. Make sure you include all of their contact details. Make it look complete. So their full name, the organization, their position, the organization they work for, and we'll show you some samples next week. Their email address and their phone number as well will be handy. So this is a sample from, and I won't go into all the details of this, but we'll talk more about this next week. I would always include a career profile at the top of your page. It just sets the tone. People use career objective. I personally am not a fan of objectives because the objective is usually quite clear. But the career profile can give you a chance to tailor and to talk a little bit about, a little more about yourself, your specific, what you specifically bring to the role, etc. Here's an example of key achievements. You could actually go for a couple more. Your first page is prime real estate. So put all your love into that first page so that they go on and read the second page. And they've done some scanning of some eye scans. And what they've found is that recruiters kind of go like this, and then they quickly flick to the next page and then they scan. And I saw some more recent data, and they said that that recruiters spend 60 seconds. I had some other data for a while that said 2 to 3 minutes, and probably because we've all got busier, and they're like, nope. So you want to make sure that it's easy for them to digest, that it fits the AI tools. And we know that the SCU ones, and here's a couple of other, if you don't like those, you can use, I always recommend these ones. So Seek, actually, they have their own template. and you can be guaranteed that the template will work. The Hayes is a recruitment company in Sydney. I have no affiliation. I should get some start getting commission on there. Hayes is a recruitment company in Sydney, and have a look at. I really like. They offer a free, and again, super important for me to note, a free download for a resume on there, and I really like it. I use it personally. I like the layout, and it works. I've given it to students in the past, and it works nicely. But they're all very similar to the SCU careers. They have made resumes specifically for you guys, and then all you need to do is go ahead and tweak them. They are all very similar, but we do know that the automatic tracking systems like the Seek one, the Hayes one, you might have other ones. If you do have another one, I would suggest getting somebody to have a look at it. But more importantly, put it through some machines. Put it through the Resume Worded, put it through Resume 360, send out some jobs that you may be ready for if they happen to be able to meet with your criteria. It's a really buoyant marketplace in terms of opportunities for graduates. So that's a really exciting time. So pre-pandemic, true story, on the Gold Coast, it was hard to even find a voluntary job for help students find voluntary work. So it's a really, really good time. Yes, industries are changing and the world of work is changing, and there's hybrid work, and there's the things like conditions of work are changing, etc., etc. However, there is plenty of work, and recruiters are desperate and love and understand the value of our postgraduate students. So here's just some example of achievements to include. I'm just checking the time. Yep. Promotions, increased sales figures, running a project, and that could be something. I know lots of you guys do projects as part of your study. Being a part of a team, you could again talk about projects that you've done in your undergrad, things that you've done at work, winning an award, a prize. It's always great to, if you've got a really good GPA, pop it on there, but make sure you put that it's out of 7. Other parts of the world, I think it's out of 4. So just make sure you put like a line, so you don't put, like, if it's in Europe and it's, good GPA is you've got 3.5. In Australia, that's a pass. And no problem if you don't have a great GPA. I've had plenty of students. I saw one of them the other day, actually, who, wasn't a high distinction student, but went on to do brilliantly in her career. So just focus on what you do have. What we tend to do when we're nervous and we're anxious and worried in a transition is our mind goes to what we don't have. You're in a transition, it takes time. So focus on what you do have. Customer service, feedback from customers, awards, outside of work, raising money for charity, being elected for a committee, sporting achievements, anything that you've done in your study. So here is just the reminder about the automatic tracking system. These systems analyze resumes instead of a human. It is super important. They're the first screening tools that employers use. They're often used. Now they're used in all cases. Universities use them. Large government. Assume your resume format, layout, wording, suitable length, and then tailor it. That's why I'd suggest sending out some practice runs. And you might find, like, only send out practice runs for ones that you would really like the job. And even if, one of the most powerful ways, I'll be really honest, it can be hard to manage, is to start your professional working life before you finish your studies. And so don't be surprised if you get a hit. And I would encourage you, if it's something you can manage, go for it, because you can always cut your study. You can cut if you're allowed to. I know we've got international students, so you need to follow those criteria, but for those domestic students that have that flexibility, go for it. And don't be afraid. I know that we have some research students here that are slightly off topic here, but it does relate to your resume and to your application. We had an amazing student here who was asking about finishing up her a research study, and one of the students and about entering and not being able to have access to, other than applying through big portals and things. And one of the other students said, oh, I just made a list of their names and tried to make appointments. I can't remember how he framed it, but really spoke directly to them, so to speak, because his area of research was very specific, and he was then offered work. So that was a wonderful, wonderful way to do it. But in many cases, just yet, you don't have that opportunity. So that's why I'm suggesting all of the SCU careers tools. Okay, I know I'm speaking really quickly, but I've got a lot to cover there, or here, I should say. Just move that up there. The interview.
Beck, can I ask a quick question? Is that okay?
Of course, Melissa, please do.
Thank you. So when we were talking about key skills and achievements, would you recommend making them relevant to the role or just list your achievements?
Oh, great question. Yeah, fantastic question. I love that you're thinking that deeply about it. Sometimes, at different points in time, you apply for different roles, and you're going to have I'll just tell you what I do. You keep a bank of all your super your things that you're most proud of, all right? And you can have that on you could have one resume that you just call standard resume, for example, and then just cut and paste and then tweak and then change and think about if there's anything, and then make sure you put it back onto that bank, add it to the bank of, say, for example, I don't know, to date, you've got your 6 or 7 achievements, but then there's something in this job and something that really excites you. It's because, oh my God, I've done that project in, XYZ in my other role, or something's happened in the meantime. So you can have, in the earlier stages of developing your career, you have less and less, you'll get more and more specific because as you move further into your career. So initially, for perhaps, depending on age and how much, where people are up to, you've only got things that are quite generic. So just put on whatever you've got. However, as someone like yourself, probably Melissa, that you're more at a stage where you can tailor it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So tailor it would be my suggestion anyway. But sometimes you just got to, and if it's fantastic and if it's interesting, like travel to, I don't know, like people have done extraordinary things, traveled abroad solo for 18 months. That's an achievement, yeah, and it's interesting. And everybody loves travel, so wherever you've got the chance to tailor it, absolutely. But if you've got to, sort of rest on your laurels, so to speak, for the time being, go for that approach as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. No worries. Okay. So really quickly about the interview. All right. So I might, we've still got a few of you guys here. Is it better to be overdressed for an interview than underdressed? True or false? Who'd like to have a go? Yes, thank you. Yes. Yes, always overdressed. I had a situation it was a while ago now. I'd come back from the Middle East and they dressed very formally in the Middle East. Went for a job in northern New South Wales in the middle of summer, still in my full suit, and the employer turned up in his thongs. But I tell you what, it was better than me turning up in my thongs. What I would say is check out the organization, see what if you can scope. So have a look on their resume, have a look on, oh, yep, question. Yep, have a look on the resume. Sorry, have a look in the organization. So if you can go and check out what people are wearing, particularly in the climate that we're in, you want to make sure that how you present is a fit, but you also want to dress for the job that you don't, the job that you want rather than the one that you're going for, as the expression says. So definitely overdress rather than underdress. But and particularly when you go to work for those, try to just match the tone. The first 90 seconds of an interview largely impact how successful you will be. True or false? Oh, it's actually true. Yeah, so first impressions really, really matter. And here is a really quick evidence-based tool. And I've heard it a few times, is that you want to show your hands, particularly it's most likely these days, probably 95% chance it's going to be in an online setting. You want to show your hands early on. And that is for the very fact that we are wired for safety and security and as human beings. And it's a very primal thing. So it shows that somebody is you're not going to show your hands like this, but make sure that they can see your hands and it creates a sense of safety. My other strongest tip about those first couple is go, literally show how excited, when that screen opens up, how excited you are to be there. It will capture their attention. It will calm you down and then down, because it's like, oh, I get to be here with you. I mean, you don't have to squeal like me, but really show, make sure that because we're frightened when we're having an interview, but you want to show that you really want to be there. It will relax them, it will relax you and lighten the tone, because invariably you're going to turn up. You're going to turn up early, and then there's going to be a couple of minutes where you're going to have some probably talk while somebody else comes in. And so you're going to talk about the weather, usually the weather. That's what we always talk about, don't we, Alison? These days we all talk about the weather, easy topic, because you may have to wait for other, you'll be early. Perhaps they'll let you in 2 minutes early, but then there'll be perhaps other people coming in. So show that sometimes you can go in, sometimes they won't open up that camera until everybody, all of their team are in. So you want to make sure that you show that warmth and enthusiasm. People employ people that they like. So remember that. You want to show them your most likable traits. Coming to the next question, is it better to talk about a technical area of weakness than a personality issue? Is it better to talk about a technical area of weakness? True or false? So should you talk about something that you're not so technically strong in rather than a personality? Yeah, that's it. Yes. And increasingly we have robots in our worlds, although the robots are getting very, very savvy. I've begun this session by talking about my chats with ChatGTP about careers, and I was astonished by the warmth that the robot showed me. However, what they want to, technical areas, employers say that one of the hardest areas is they can teach people technical skills for the most part. If it's mathematics, they won't be teaching me. They can teach people, but employers tell us that it is harder to change people's fundamental, if people are difficult to get along with, etc. And if you've had issues, it can create a red flag. So it can be okay to talk about that you're developing you're still developing you're at intermediate level of excel and you're working towards advanced. Okay, so that and that's okay. It's a weakness. It's at intermediate level, or it's at basic level, and you're moving. It shows that you're developing it, but it's not something that's going to perhaps cause some tensions, challenges, upset people in the organization. Is it better? This is always an interesting one, I think. Is it better to ask any questions at the end of the interview than ask one or two? Is it better, not to ask any questions? So should we be asking questions or not? And I've got some new feedback based on, not from interviews, but based on my own experience with some things recently that I thought, oh, wow, I must add that. So yes, ask questions. Something that I've found can often happen when you're having a meeting with somebody, in any capacity, is that often a lot of your questions will get, or this is something sort of new insight that I've had. Your questions often will get asked if it's a good interview and they've allowed plenty of time and you've got nice rapport and they've managed it in a really professional way. You'll find that they will often, by way of the chat at the beginning, chats that happen in the middle, etc. Then at the end, they'll answer a lot of your questions. So what I would suggest doing is actually write a few, maybe even 4 questions, because it can look a little bit silly when you kind of go, oh no, you've answered all my questions. It looks like actually you didn't have anything prepared. So I would just put a slightly longer list of questions, so then you can go, oh, actually, yeah, she answered that, and then you can look really well prepared. Things to stay away from with questions are salary, and when I ask students what they should ask about, they often always say salary, and then the next thing they always ask about is, when am I going to get trained and developed? I would say stay away from those things for the time being. You can ask about those. Well, the salary should come up somewhere in the process, and this is all take this feedback with a grain of salt. It's all situational and very different situations, and then training and development, it kind of looks like, it can look like, I just want to get the training and development so I can move on somewhere else. Yes, it can show that you're keen to learn, etc. So what I would suggest doing really quickly is to focus on questions associated with things to do with the team, things to do with culture, projects. So show that you've researched them by looking up on their socials, their website, projects that they're working on, developments, things happening in the organization. It shows that you're interested, you're really engaged, you've done your research. But really importantly, think of things that you are genuinely interested in, that you would like to know. And hopefully that should relate back to, don't apply for a job that doesn't, I know initially you've got to get a job, etc. But as soon as you can, don't waste your time, because you will not, it won't necessarily go so well, because you're not going to be, it's a waste of time. So be super positive about what you go for, and think about things you'd love to know in that interview process. Oh, there we go. So asking what salary, I think we'll move. Is it better to talk more about what I've done than... So have a go at this one here. This is an important one. Question 6. Is it better to talk more about what I have done than what I have achieved? It's a tricky one. Achievements. So you want to talk about the results of your work rather than the work that you did. So for example, if you've worked in a restaurant, and it's a large restaurant in the CBD of Brisbane, you wouldn't talk about, not you wouldn't, but it would be better to talk about, how you had to manage, turn the tables over 3 times, in an evening, that you consistently received positive feedback, from customers. One customer even, went ahead and did a Google review for you, just specifically about you. And then the alternative B would be, oh, well, we do 3 tables and I serve the table, I carry the plates, backwards and forwards, to the kitchen, I wipe the tables down. And that's talking about what you did as opposed to your results. Both are valid, but they want to talk about, okay, well, when, Sadit or whoever it is was working in that role, the things that they accomplished as a result of doing that job really well. Sending a thank you email after the interview is well regarded, always. And any very, I think Alison, I'd love to bring Alison in here. She's always got fabulous feedback. Bring her in the last 10 minutes for a chat. Any opportunity to engage professionally and individually with the potential recruiter can be really powerful. The only thing with that, and I remember, I don't think she would mind me sharing that one of the careers team, she shared somebody that was applying for a position and it didn't go well. So you want to be really considered and confident. So only, engage in that individual interaction if you're confident that you can manage that form of communication in a way that enhances your application as opposed to damages your application. But in most cases, it's a marvelous opportunity by saying thank you or asking questions about the role beforehand, but just make sure that you've thought really carefully about who you are. Imagine you're going into an interview if you're going to chat to them before the interview. And many employers are, really open to chatting. So just a few things to wrap up before we take some time, take 10 minutes for questions. The types of interviews these days, you'll find that it's most likely to be online. However, what I can say, and I laugh, not because it's funny, I laugh because I hear and see all sorts of scenarios now. It used to be very formal process. You'd submit an application, you'd get an email saying, come to this interview at this time. Now it's changed. Sometimes people, you won't even get a heads up, and you'll get people, for a smaller company, you might just get a phone call. Sometimes you'll have to do a 10-minute pre-screening interview, and you may not even get a heads up for that pre-screening interview. So sometimes you can be caught out with that. Sometimes, even to the best of your ability, you've checked and you've checked and you've checked, and then something goes wrong with the equipment, and you're just going to have to roll with it. Sometimes there are less people in the interview than what you're expecting. Sometimes I've heard scenarios where there's more. Sometimes a super duper common one that I have heard, seen, experienced many times now. It even happened in an environment where it should have been by law more transparent, was that somebody was asked to have a chat, and he turned up and it was a panel and a full-blown interview for a chat. But the chat, if you're asked for a chat, anybody asks you for a chat, you're being interviewed. So please don't get lulled. And actually one of our he's a postgraduate student. He's in Tasmania. And he has come and helped. I don't know if he's come to these. Oh, yes, he came to these workshops a couple of years ago. It was raining. It was winter. And he said that one of the things that he's the hotel manager, and he said he asks people for a chat deliberately so he can get to know them. So that assessment centres, they're less commonly held. They're for very, very competitive interviews. It can be a very, very lengthy process where they will put you through a series of scenarios. So they'll get you to work in teams, they'll get you to work individually. The thing that you need to know about assessment centres is, and there's lots of information online about assessment centres, is imagine that you're being assessed on your way there. So make sure there's lots of people involved in an assessment centre, and it's a very lengthy process, but they are watching you all the time to watch you perform and behave in different scenarios. Dress appropriately for the workplace. And so what I saw, even, and I've seen it, in fact, I've still seen it, even in videos, is that, so just be conservative. I know that unless you are 100% sure that the way that you're going to present yourself. So I had one guy a few years ago, and it was a skateboarding company, and he kind of presented himself beautifully. He looked just like he was going for the skateboarding company. Yes, you want to show that you align, but you need to be cautious of people's so cultural backgrounds. So I always suggest long sleeves for both men and women. I always suggest, if it's face-to-face, covering up to knee length and keeping things, accessories, etc., to a minimum, just to be precautious, and so as to not, you don't want to offend, unintentionally, of course. Eye contacts and smiles, good posture. If you get to chat, be on time. There is an amazing Amy Cuddy. I think it's, I'll have a look at it. I'll look at it, get you the link in a minute. There's an amazing YouTuber, and she talks about, and it's about a 20-minute video, and she talks about preparing for the interview, and she talks about power poses. Fantastic. I've had students that have done power poses, and it has changed their experience of interviews. And I had a lady who, she was a barista, and I just knew her from coffee, and she said, I'm going for a job in real estate. And I was like, oh, you've got to watch this video. And then I went back and got my coffee the next time. She said, oh my God, I did the power pose and I got the job. So in a minute, I'll double check her name so I can send you. So doing power poses, I've done them myself. They work. But one of the things that you can do, oh, beautiful, thank you so much, Cuddy. We've got a colleague, we've got a staff member who's got a very similar name. Thank you. Fantastic, beautiful. But one other thing that I think can be, that I found really helpful, is to remember that you've only got a small audience. So I like to think of somebody like Nicole Kidman, and she fails all the time. In front of millions of people, and she just gets back up there and does it again, and then she does really well. So just remember that if you get really anxious, it's actually only a couple of people that you're going to, if it doesn't go well, that you are going to be performing in front of. And that really, really successful people, they fail all of the time, and they have a very high tolerance for failure. That's why they're really good at, of course, they have technical ability, they're amazing actors, singers, dancers, what have you, but they also have that capacity, that resilience. And that gentleman that I mentioned, the former postgraduate student, who I still have the amazing good fortune of being in touch with, that was one of the things that I observed and learned so much from watching about him, was that he would just get himself up, back up, and he'd have another go at it. And he's, there he is, he's married, bought a house, living in Tasmania, working in hospitality, and he's actually recently started a side hustle that we've been talking about for years, in tourism as well. So I hope maybe one day get a chance to meet Avi. He's amazing, and he has been involved in these workshops before. Interview prep, research their values, who will be interviewing you. You can type their name into online, and it's helpful just to get a visual of what their face is going to look like. Often people look different. I had hair until recently, but it helps you get a sense of what they're going to look like when you, and then that can ease that sense of comfort, that familiarity. You can gain a lot by having a look at their profile, reading as much as you can about them, review the advertisement, thinking about what you're going to wear the night before. Make sure that it can be hard because you're anxious. Make sure you sleep as best you can. Don't eat any heavy, yucky food. That's not the night to, binge on Netflix, etc. That's the night to make sure that you do the things that give you the most comfortable, fabulous sleep, taking a nice walk, doing the power poses beforehand. But the most important thing above all the things that you can do, got 1 minute over, is practice, 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 practice. And I mean that it is the area that I see that all students, even, those, but what the wonderful thing is that I can, with the practice, I see students transform. So it's really awkward. And then we just go again and we practice it again and we practice it again and we practice it again. And within an hour, holy moly, transformation. So don't shoot yourself in the foot in that you've got through 90% of that pathway and then you've got that final little hurdle and you haven't rehearsed, thought about, get a big sheet of paper and write out all of the examples of times where you've achieved fabulous things, the way that you perform best, everything from your absolute best. I'm conscious of time here. We're going to be talking about interviews. I want to just, we've got 8 minutes left on, leave enough time for questions. One just important tip here is one of the first things that students struggle, one of the primary things students struggle with is the first question, tell me about yourself, because we can feel awkward with that question. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. We're coming back for interviews and I'll pop up the final slide in a minute just to promote our workshops. We've got 3 more weeks. Next week, more on the cover letter, more on the resume, LinkedIn, and then, interviews and LinkedIn coming up. All right, Melissa, you look like you have a question there.
I've gotten so many questions, I don't actually know what to ask, but
well, I'm pleased that it's created some thought for you.
Yes, lots. Thank you. I've been applying for jobs essentially since I started my postgrad studies, and I was only given one job, and the first shift I had to shovel horse poo, and nothing wrong with shoveling horse poo, but it wasn't my career goal to do so. So I rapidly left that role, and since then I've probably applied for a total of 40 odd roles and not got anything back. So I'm writing tons of notes and thinking of all the things I need to do. And I'm going to register with like some professional associations and things like that to try and get to some conferences. My resume and cover letter, like I've been working on that lots and trying to make sure that that's nice and clean and easy to read and all the things. But yeah, I don't know. I know it's hard. I don't expect you to have the magical answer, but I mean, where would be a good place to start?
So probably chatting with myself or with Susie, one-on-one, to get some clarity. Probably the place that I would start is getting really clear about where you want to be, when you want to be there. Is it a part-time job? Is it a combination of a part-time job, some volunteering, etc., and having a plan, yeah? And then knowing what tools you need to go, and having that time to chat, okay, this is where my strengths are, this is where I need to develop, yeah? Then setting a plan, then knowing where because I think it's likely then the types of organizations, the way you approach it all, you're going to have a much clearer vision, an eye on your target, as opposed to kind of having a complex feelings around what you're doing. Does that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I really liked how you said earlier, like think about your values and the types of organizations that embody that, and then write a list, learn about them, think about them, what would it be like to work there, and then just sort of keep my eye focused on that. Because initially I definitely was probably a bit more broad in what I wanted to apply for, and over time I've got more specific and been a little bit fussier about what I'm applying for.
beautiful. And be fussy. Fussy doesn't mean arrogance. It means that you will make better use of your time. It means you'll have a better experience, and it means that it will be better for the employer. You know, you're going to be a win-win. I've got this group of students out on placement at the moment, and it's just they're thriving because exactly what the organisation needs is what the person needs. Yeah. So it does take, it's a longer process initially, but also more enjoyable because you can sit back and now go, hang on, I'm in charge here. Yeah, I'm driving this. Yes, I'm going to have to make changes. Yes, there may be times for sacrifice. It may not all go according to my plan. I'm going to have to, but I'm in charge here. I can make this, and then I'm going to find a place where what I can bring to you, you've got, and we can have a really nice fit and achieve what you want to achieve and the organisation. And then luckily you'll stay there for a long period of time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely keen to do that. I'm grateful that in hindsight, like I hear a lot of postgrad students, they get to like the last year of their PhD and they're like, oh, I'm going to start seeing what's out there. So I'm grateful for this process because it's really, I read something and it said, you know, applying for a job, think about it like a project. Like it is a project. You need to think about what are your goals, when do you want to achieve them, and then you need to set aside time for that and all those things. So just trying to shift that mindset at this, because this is not just getting a job, like it's career-wise, I need to think carefully and be considerate about what I want to do and how I want to get there.
Absolutely.
Can
yes,
I comment?
please.
So you sort of need to customize, like Beck said earlier, each cover letter for each job. Hey, you sort of need to rewrite that cover letter for each position. And I guess I was working with Beck when I was doing this job, and then I got the opportunity to I started as a casual, and then I got the opportunity to interview for the permanent position, which I now have. So one of the things I did, like Beck said earlier, is go right over the website of the employer. And I used keywords from the Postgrad Association website in my cover letter. Absolutely. And they have a mission statement, like what they believe in and what their motivation is. And I kind of wrote some of that into my own sentence of what my motivation and mission is, and it sort of lines up, you know. Anyway,
you're here and you're happy and you're employed and you're loving it.
and I made it, yeah. So like in the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association logo, underneath it says postgrads helping postgrads to succeed. And I am a graduate of, I've done my postgrad with SCU, so like I've got that inside understanding of what it is to be a postgrad student. So tick number one, you know, it's sort of, I am a postgrad helping other postgrads, you know. So it might just seem really obvious, but you need to kind of spell those things out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So go over the website. So. Yeah.
Yeah. And Melissa, in the short term, you could just come along because we're going to dive into, if you wanted to, come along for the next couple of weeks, or listen to the recordings and then see how you go. I mean, we're here. You can, I put my, and then you can get in touch with me directly anytime. You might find, you know, as you're in this stage, just come along each week and then see how you're tracking. It will certainly, and that's all, it doesn't matter. I think it's all under, all lowercase. And I think over this period, or certainly my experience, we've had a few students like yourself, it sort of almost finds its own life over this course of 4 weeks, because you get to part of the process is reflection, and then practicing some of the things, and then diving back in, and then some reflection. So that's just another suggestion for you. But I also wanted to commend you, because the most ideal scenario is the scenario that you're in, and perhaps other people here, is that you are, that the ethos of careers now in higher education is about starting early. And it is being woven into, across the globe, into first year components of all degrees in all different faculties across all universities, for that very reason, that it is a project and it's not something that you just kind of pop out the end and go, but I do also want to reassure that if there are people that are at the end, because I recognize that it's not too late, you know, at all. Where there are some of those simple, free, quick things that you can do, you know, to change that. But I commend you for being here early, because it is a long-term project. And I am conscious of time. It's gone 12:01.
Thank you both.
Oh, great. Thank you. Oh, pleasure. I love that you're here. Thank you so much, Melissa. We just got a question here. Is a profile picture a must in a resume in Australia, or is it fine? Yeah, great question. I'll talk in detail about photos next week. But what I will say about the photo is, look, it's a bit risky. In Australia, generally as a rule, it's a no. However, I always say that I've seen it done really well, and I've seen it done poorly. If you're dressed and you can present yourself as though you work in that industry, and they can see, and next week I'll give you a few really, you know, some specific examples of when I've seen it done well and not so well. You have a photo on your LinkedIn. Always have a photo on your LinkedIn, and have a LinkedIn, even if it's a graduate position, because we're going to talk about LinkedIn. Even if it's just your early profile, it's just the bones of your resume. Have a photo, a title up there, and then you don't need a photo for your resume. Generally in Australia, the rule of thumb is no, but I also say that I've seen it done well as well. Thank you for a great question. All right, Alison, we wrap it up. Oh, Alison, can't hear you.
Okay. I was going to, sorry. I might stop the recording, but I'm happy to stay in and chat for a minute or two.
Sure.
Okay. So hope to see everyone again next week. Thanks.
Yes, see you next week. Thank you. Next week we've got resumes and cover letters. We did have a slide, but we won't. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Lisa.